Risk convergence in Mexico. National security outlook for 2026. In 2025, the Mexican federal government reported a significant reduction in the daily average of intentional homicides, September 2024 to November 2025, presenting this trend as evidence of improved security. However, public debate and multiple analytical assessments converged on a different conclusion. Violence in Mexico has not disappeared but rather reconfigured. While some indicators declined, others intensified, particularly extortion, enforced disappearances, illicit economies, and local institutional capture. By 2026, Mexico's principal national security risk will no longer be abstract violence, but the cumulative erosion of state capacity. This erosion could manifest through weakened local governance, declining investor confidence, pressure on critical infrastructure, reduced rule of law, and growing strain on Mexico's political, economic, and security relationship with the United States and the broader region, including Venezuela. These threats are predominantly internal, structural, and long-term, now interacting with mounting external pressures. 1. Institutional fragility and non-drug criminal economies. Mexico's organized crime landscape is no longer defined primarily by drug trafficking. Criminal organizations are undergoing a structural mutation characterized by fragmentation, diversification, and digitalization. Increasingly, they rely on non-drug revenue streams such as extortion, fuel theft, kidnapping, fraud, and systematic taxation of local economies. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's National Drug Threat Assessment 2025 identifies this expansion into non-drug activities as a central risk vector. By 2026, extortion and territorial economic control may become the primary form of criminal governance, more stable than drug trafficking itself. 2. Criminal competition over strategic logistics corridors. In 2025, multiple analyses pointed to intensified criminal competition over ports, highways, customs facilities, and industrial corridors. Organizations such as Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación increasingly combine drug trafficking with pressure on formal industries and services, targeting logistics rents. By 2026, this dynamic poses a national economic security risk. Disruptions to supply chains under the USMCA/TMEC framework, cargo theft, infiltration of ports and customs, and large-scale money laundering through real estate and services could trigger external compliance pressures, inspections, or sanctions. 3. Rising U.S. pressure in synthetic drugs and geopolitics. U.S. security assessments in 2025 continued to frame Mexico as a critical theater for synthetic drugs, transnational criminal networks, and migration flows, a perception unlikely to soften in 2026. This pressure is further intensified by the emerging U.S. framing of fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, WMD, due to its mass casualty impact and strategic public health effects. This reframing elevates fentanyl from a law enforcement issue to a national security threat, potentially justifying extraordinary policy tools under U.S. security doctrine. As a result, Mexico may face demands for more intrusive bilateral cooperation, expanded intelligence sharing, and potential unilateral U.S. measures, including sanctions, criminal or terrorist-style designations, financial restrictions, and extraterritorial enforcement actions. The likelihood of integrated security and trade conditionality also increases, linking market access and investment to measurable security outcomes, a renewed North American security and prosperity partnership. Together, these dynamics risk constraining Mexico's operational sovereignty and macroeconomic stability. These pressures are compounded by escalating U.S.-Venezuela tensions. Displacement of Venezuelan-linked illicit networks toward Mexico could trigger heightened U.S. scrutiny of Mexico's airspace, ports, financial system, and diplomatic posture, turning Venezuela into an additional vector of security conditionality. 4. Cyber insecurity. Mexico faces an escalating cyber crisis. Fragmented defenses, rising ransomware attacks, and weak cyber governance have transformed digital vulnerability into a strategic national security threat. Cyber incidents increasingly affect government agencies, financial systems, and critical services. By 2026, cyber attacks against urban mobility systems, airports, payment platforms, hotels, telecoms, local governments, and major public events could generate panic, economic disruption, and reputational damage. 5. Economic uncertainty and regulatory volatility. Mexico's economic outlook is increasingly shaped by regulatory unpredictability. constitutional, fiscal, and sectoral reforms, particularly in taxation, property rights, energy regulation, and water concessions, have introduced uncertainty into previously stable frameworks. Shifting rules on permits, environmental authorizations, and contract continuity have increased transaction costs and risk premiums. Combined with modest growth, this volatility risks deterring domestic and foreign investment and weakening long-term competitiveness. While framed as sovereignty-enhancing, these reforms intersect with institutional fragility and heavy trade dependence under the USMCA, elevating economic uncertainty from a policy challenge to a national security concern. 6. The 2026 World Cup as a risk multiplier. Hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup will place Mexico under extraordinary international scrutiny by concentrating mass crowds, critical infrastructure, logistics networks, digital systems, dignitaries, and global media attention in Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. The event will act as a risk multiplier, amplifying existing criminal threats, extortion, theft, fraud, disappearances, territorial control, while adding event-specific vulnerabilities such as cyber attacks, transport disruptions, service sabotage, tourist crime, and disinformation campaigns. Any significant failure during the World Cup could produce systemic effects, rapidly translating local incidents into reputational, economic, and diplomatic crises affecting trade, investment, tourism, and North American cooperation. Threat assessment. Mexico enters 2026 facing a systemic convergence of internal fragility and external pressure. The most serious risk is not a single actor or event, but the cumulative interaction of criminal diversification, weakened local governance, cyber vulnerability, regulatory uncertainty, and mounting geopolitical leverage from the United States. The combination of Venezuela escalation, USMCA sensitivities, and the FIFA World Cup transforms 2026 into a strategic stress test. Localized incidents or governance gaps risk being reframed as structural failures with disproportionate economic, diplomatic, and security consequences. Mexico's national security challenge in 2026 is therefore best understood as a risk of amplification, where existing vulnerabilities, once exposed under pressure, may generate cascading strategic effects.